Welcome to Kicking It Local, the podcast all about the football community in South Australia. I'm your host, Johnny Kecko, and today I'm kicking it comfortably, all thanks to Macron Sports Hub, providing clubs and sports podcasters with their teamwear needs. macronstoreadelaide.com.au to find out more and get your gear today. And I'm joined by the captain and also one club man at Adelaide Hills Hawks, Nathan Elliott. Mate, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Johnny.
It's good to have you on board. One club man, over 450 games now for the club, and 21 years as a senior footballer. How are you feeling?
Starting to feel a little bit old, but still loving the journey. So embracing the different challenges that come through. Much different team to what I've had probably to play with in the past. So as you get these new challenges, it just excites you a little bit more to keep going.
It's being a one club man, you get to experience a lot of different things for the one club. Other people jump in and out, so don't really have that idea where the club's been, where it's going to, and all that. You've gone from being a part of the leagues in South Australia have changed from 2 to 3 and then back to 2 and 3. So you've been around, but you've also gone from the top league back in 2005, 2009, and now you're in the third division. You've been able to see the ups and downs of the club. How's it feel to be able to experience that and look back on it and try and give that to the young kids that are coming through the club now?
For me, football is football. It doesn't matter what level you're playing. Growing up in the Hills, I always wanted to see football in the Hills be on the top stage. But I guess just throughout, you go through different parts of that journey, and you know that if you kind of leave the club behind, then at some point they're going to probably struggle, and you're probably disappointed that you have left them to kind of deal with that struggle. So I've really enjoyed having those opportunities to have that great success and love that success, but knowing that I've had to grind through some pretty slow, ordinary times as well, and be part of helping those younger players kind of build their way up into quality footballers.
Well, I want to get through your whole career because there's a lot to talk about. You're now 21 years into senior footballing, and I don't think the end's not any closer.
Oh, it's definitely closer, but hopefully still got a couple of years in the legs, as long as the body holds out.
Well, I want to go back to the early days when you first started, because you've been there since under 13s. Prior to that, what led you into playing football? Because you're saying off air that you're not a football family. Yeah,
so I grew up in a family that was very AFL. A couple of uncles that were kind of played SANFL, and so all of my cousins were in a country town at Strath, and everyone kind of played AFL. So I bucked the trend a little bit. My mum's side of the family, that did come from England. So my great grandpa often talked about playing football, climbing the wall over it, just near Anfield, and playing some football there. So there was a bit of that, but we moved into Harndorf. We lived next to a well-known football family in the Hills, Rob Kilpatrick and his boys. So we were similar ages to his boys, and so they were playing football, and they probably got me and my brother into it back when we were about 5. So before we could actually get into AFL, soccer was probably a good option.
That's definitely a good option in my view. Not biased at all, but I've spent time in the Adelaide Hills, which I've mentioned a lot of times, but I saw how prominent Hills Football League is up there, and also AFL rules the Adelaide Hills. For yourself, what was it like going to school and playing football and knowing most of your mates would have been playing AFL?
Yeah, it was pretty challenging at times because my mates did. They absolutely played footy, and they'd always get into me because I wasn't playing footy. And I guess I just love playing soccer, and I could go and have a kick of the footy with them. So I enjoyed that, and I just kind of stuck to it. I played a lot of basketball as well. So I kind of got to play sport with my mates through basketball.
You're tall enough to play basketball.
I am now. I wasn't when I was younger, but I think I kind of had those outlets where I could do that stuff with my mates. But soccer was just something that, my old man got into the committees, and my brother was playing soccer, so it was something we could kind of do together.
The lead into playing for Adelaide Hills Hawks, what was the reason for moving to that club?
The structures have changed a lot. Grassroots football in the Hills is a lot different, and I could talk for hours about that. But essentially, when I was going through, you played for the town that you lived in, And from there you went into state champs and country champs with JSA, and then you got fed into the Hawks at under 13s, and so it was where you wanted to be.
Yep.
As a young fella, you wanted to make that team with all the best players in the Hills, and then you go from there.
Yep.
So we used to really hate the boys that went down to the city, and it became a real driving point for our team in juniors, and particularly me. I just wanted to beat those big clubs that thought that we were nobodies.
Well, now it's a little bit different, as you did mention. You got two clubs up there in the Adelaide Hills, and I think you're one that's passionate about the about that rivalry as well. How do you find it now with players coming through and they've got options? It can either go to the city, or they've also got now Mount Barker United as well, who are establishing themselves.
That's a long conversation, that one, and one that I've got to be careful with because I'll potentially make comments that people won't like. I don't like how the changes came through when Mount Barker came through, and the rivalry for me is it's not about Mount Barker and the Hills. It's about what football was in the Hills.
Yep.
And when that kind of came along, and they wanted to go away from what the normal grassroots football in the Hills was, it really damaged Hills football, and that's why now we have a lot of gaps. They're not producing players through their grassroots. We're really struggling to be able to maintain sustainable young players to come through the first team. So that whole restructure of how football happens in the Hills, for me, it's not easy to watch, and it's why we're, I guess, as two clubs sitting where we are, which is pretty sad for those of us. And there's not many of us that I guess have been through that whole journey, but I got to see the people that kind of worked hard to get football in the Hills started, and have now seen that journey kind of disappear a little bit.
Do you feel like in a few years' time, or maybe 10 years' time, that we could see two thriving teams in the Hills?
Nah, I don't. And I don't because I guess what people that haven't kind of been there for that long don't understand what soccer is in the Hills. And I say soccer when I talk about it in the Hills because AFL is what the Hills is.
Yeah.
And that's the reality of it. It's not the same as, I guess, the city regions. It's a very different context, a very different culture. And there's so many years of AFL culture that soccer, whilst we'll get young people playing it and we might get growth with numbers, it's not a structure at the moment that is going to sustain quality football, unfortunately.
Well, for yourself now, you've been playing for a very long time, but your junior years to lead you to where you are now, what do you enjoy most about the junior years at the Hawks coming through the ranks?
Probably just that, we had a real culture of sticking it up to the big clubs. I really enjoyed that we didn't need to necessarily have all the best coaches, and we didn't have the best facilities, and what drove us was to show that people in the Hills could still play football, and we could match it with the best. And through juniors, I was really lucky to have a team that we were really successful, and we were all kind of all on the same page. We didn't lose too many players to the city, so it was, for us, I guess, a great grounding.
Did you always think, because you did mention you want to stick at the Hills, but was there ever a temptation to leave the Adelaide Hills at the young age? Or go there to play senior?
Not young. Definitely in juniors, no. I certainly knew my mum and dad, they battled hard enough just to get me up to Mount Barker to trainings, but for them to be able to take me to the city wasn't even something we would have contemplated. But I guess there were, and one of my proudest things is the fact that I've probably been asked by every club to go and play for them, and I've stayed true to my ideals of football, and that I didn't need to be at a big club to be a good footballer. So there were some times when you get a lot of cash thrown, and you're like, oh god, that could pay off the house for the year. But it always came down to if I wanted to play football for the right reasons, and the reason I got into football in the Hills was because I wanted to show everyone else that you don't have to be one of those big clubs.
Do you feel like you got appreciated for doing that, for making that choice, but at the club?
Yeah, definitely. The club definitely appreciates it. I don't know that people always understand necessarily what the options were. So they don't necessarily know some of those sacrifices because I'm not a big talker of them. So I think now, people looking back are starting to probably realise, some of those older guys that are coming back to the club are helping share that story.
Yeah.
Which is what it's not so much about, what my journey is, but also understanding the reasons behind that journey and that you don't have to go somewhere to be a good footballer.
Well, absolutely. Well, you probably had opportunities when the club got relegated a few years back, where you went back into State League 2. You struggled to get back up that first year, and even though you did very well in that season. The second year you managed to win the grand final in 2019. But so did you ever think that at that point maybe it would be good opportunity to go and jump ship and go there, or just you were adamant you wanted to get the club back up?
No, definitely not at that point. Probably the only time I got closer was probably around our earlier success. So we got promoted, at the end of 04 for 05, and then again 08 we had a great run. They were probably some times when it got a little bit tempting when there were a lot of players retired or went on to play with different clubs, and then you kind of wonder about where the team's fitting and how you're going to keep going. But definitely once I got to that point, there was no way I was moving on.
What were the moments when your childhood club and your local club as well, when you make the top league? Wasn't NPL at that stage, a little bit different setup, but it was the top division in South Australia. 2005, 2009, albeit that you did get relegated in the first season in that league. But how'd you find that, and how proud were you to be able to be on the top stage in South Australia?
Oh, hugely proud. And proud not just for myself, but for all the work that had gone into that. We still did it without money, and we still did it without even really. It took us a long time to get a club rooms and to get our ground and our club rooms. People don't realise, that was all players and volunteers, locals that built every part of it. And so to see that on the big stage, to be able to have people come up and see what we had worked so hard for, I don't think there's anything you can feel more proud of. Grand final success is amazing for that short moment, but when you get to invite people to the place that you built, and there's no better field, there's no better ground in South Australia than the Nest.
Yeah, I would say a lot of people from the city would say there's no worse place to go on a Saturday night up in the Nest where it's freezing, because I commentated a few games there, and for me it actually shocked me the first time. I didn't realise how cold it was, and then the amount of jackets I had to wear. I reckon I had about 5 or 6 back up in the car, and I ended up using all of them by the end of the night.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how many layers. No. Doesn't matter how many layers, but you kind of you don't get used to it. It's always just cold, but you learn to love it.
Yeah, the only person that ever got used to it, I think, was your head coach last season, Gaz Von Duvet, wearing a T-shirt, and he said if he didn't have to look a little bit professional, he would have worn shorts as well.
Absolutely. And at training, he still would. He'd roll in with his thongs and his shorts and his T-shirt. But
and it's freezing.
Yeah, he's something special, Gaz.
How do you find that, having clubs come up and having that advantage of playing in the cold? Do you guys love it, even though it's so cold, and some of you used to it, some may not be, but how do you find that, having that advantage?
Yeah, definitely. I guess probably now not so much of an advantage. We're not playing night games this year, so it's hard to judge, but up until a couple of years ago when we did have a lot of Hills boys in our team, you definitely knew that clubs were coming up and hating it. Like you could see at the start of the game they didn't want to be there, and if you got on top of them early, there was no way they were getting back because their mental state just wasn't there to be football. Yep. So it was a huge advantage.
Because it's even hard to see the players sometimes with the amount of fog on there, and at some point you can see the steam coming off your head as well.
Yeah.
Did you ever struggle playing in there, or did you just mentally just be able to cope with it after a while?
My asthma definitely struggles in the cold, but no, I loved it. I embraced it.
Yeah.
I think that's what football's about, is having kind of your home area is what you love, and what, if that's something that takes away from someone else's experience, and that's a win for you, and you get on top of them as best you can. Yeah,
I used to see people getting angry being up there when they'll go 1-0 down, and just it was a very good atmosphere a couple of years ago, and it seemed like the juniors, the setup there, they all get behind you guys, What do you find the best about the way the club's set up at the Hawks?
I think we have a strong understanding that for us as a club that are not going to look to buy in players, and we're not going to get big money, and so for us to survive, we need to have our young players coming through, and so we as players really embrace that, and we want to see those young people out at our games and get really excited when we get to see them. When I was coming through, the first team used to do that. We'd see them, particularly in cup rounds.
Yep.
They'd come and watch. And for me, growing up, like, that was a huge buzz when I could look up and Justin Gallagher was standing up on the sideline, and I'd be like, I just want to be that guy.
Yeah.
So we all the way through, I guess, we've made that a real point to keep that connection, where I don't think some of the big clubs necessarily do, because they become too big for that.
Yeah. Well, it does seem like you guys do have that, and the Hawks Nest itself, having a facility like that, it's slowly growing, got extra change rooms and all that now as well. How do you find it to be able to build from where it was to the way it is now as well?
I guess I've loved seeing the journey of it from, when we first started it, because when I started, we were down at Corinna, which is not what it is now, but I still remember going up and seeding the lawn and putting up the fences and watching our president at the time and some of the players building what was our old change rooms, and it was small. And then as we went through, Stell came up as the president, and she kind of got us the grants to get the big clubhouse,
yep.
Get the bar underway, and then Butler's come along and has continued that, and now we've got this really nice setup with change rooms. And I guess because I've seen where we've all come from, it's really nice to just sit in the change rooms and just enjoy that space, and help the younger ones now that maybe haven't been through and seen those hard yards to appreciate it.
How hard is it to try and to show them what it was like, to make them appreciate it?
It takes a while for some of them. Sometimes you got to get stuck into them, because they don't necessarily respect it. They just roll in and they just think it is what it is. And but just conversations with them, and you get that connection as you have a beer after the game, and you start telling stories, and you get some of the older fellas that went through that journey coming in as well.
Yeah,
and they keep the message flowing through.
450 games, only a few have been able to crack that. Looking back on your career, what's some of the highlights of that time playing that many games across your career, and all for the one club as well? Because that's even rarer to get that milestone with only just one club.
There's a lot of highlights. I think probably the biggest highlight was the first game at the Nest, but. The thing that still sits in me is still my first conversation with Craig Leith when he told me the first year after some pre-seasons. I still vividly remember we had a pre-season game at Port Lion, and he came up to me and said, "Look, we can't give you any money, but we would love you to play first team for us." And that is the moment that I remember as kind of the start of my journey.
Yep.
04, going into, I guess, our first High Marsh experience, that was pretty incredible in a season that we just should never have been anywhere near it. And I got to experience what can happen in a team that maybe isn't as talented, but just all committed to a cause, and then just an unbelievable run through High Marsh.
Yep. Because that year you finished fifth, didn't you? And you had to win the grand final to get that promotion spot.
We just had to get to the grand final. So fortunately, Playford were phenomenal that year. They had some unbelievable players in that team. So we were never going to compete with them. And in the final, they trounced us after us. We went up 1-0 and scored in the first couple of minutes, and then they went on to score 6.
Jeez.
But that run through, we had earlier in the year, Parrot Hills, they had a great team that year as well, but they belted us 6-1. I scored in that game as well, and I remember, like, it was just a ridiculous goal, one of my favourites. But Nick Brooks was coaching at the time, and he said to our coach, "Oh, that guy's just a plank, he's going nowhere." And I said that was a catalyst for us getting real serious that year, because I said, well, that guy's got no idea, and I'm going to show him.
Yep.
Then they came up to us at second round, and we beat them 1-0, and then in in the finals, in the semis. We got them 2-1 after a bit of a battle as well. So that was kind of the real, I guess, that sort of comment of people that just didn't understand Hills football.
The 450th game, you mentioned off air that it wasn't really quite clear on which game that was going to be. But what did the club do to celebrate it? Because I've spoken to others, and they absolutely love their moments with getting celebrated by their club, with Daniel Cox at Paul Peary and also Luke Klemick, who only cracked their 300th and 350th games, but they all did it at one club as well. Similar situation to you. There's not many of you, but what was that moment like from the club's perspective? What did they do to you?
We didn't do a lot around the 450. We have always done stuff around the centuries.
Yep.
And so they kind of talked to me about it. And I said, well, I don't think we should do a lot. They definitely acknowledged it, and
yep.
Our social media showed it, and we talked a little bit about it. After the game, Craig Leith and Fraser Keegan both said something in the club rooms, which is really nice.
Yep.
But I stick to what the club's always done, and we've always done big things for. It used to be 100 club.
Yep.
That was the big thing for us because I was the first to get to 200. It wasn't something that happened to get to 200.
Yep.
So it was 100, 200, 300, and 400 where we did something.
Yep.
I guess a little bit more.
So you're waiting for your 500?
So when we get to 500, we might put a bit more attention into it.
You're going to try and, because by the end of the next season, you'll be pretty close to it. Do you reckon that will get you on for one more season just to get to that 500?
Probably not.
No?
I don't think. I'm not playing for stats, so no. I wouldn't play a whole season just because I want to get to 500. I play for specific reasons, and at the moment, the reason I'm playing is because our club's not ready for me to stop with the young players.
Yep.
And I'm still loving it, but if we were to make finals next year, I'd probably get close to 500 in that, but I might get to 500, and then there's no reason why I would stop just because I've reached it.
Yeah.
That's not why I'm playing football.
To get to this point, it's not going to be easy to try and sustain playing football at this level. State League 2 is probably a bit easier because it's not as hard as the higher you go up in the leagues. But to be able to do this, what do you do on the outside of outside of the club to try and help yourself fitness wise?
It changes every year. I kind of give myself a focus every year.
Okay.
Something that I want to work on. The longer I've gone on, the less I've wanted to do things like running. And early on, I would run 6Ks a day in the hills, up ridiculous hills, and really push myself. And then I kind of got a bit sick of that, so I'd do a little bit of gym work or I start up another sport. I played a lot of other sports, so touch footy and basketball was kind of my avenue to get training in. And now it's realistically I do Pilates and I go to training and I just make sure that I'm not sitting on my ass all the time when I'm not playing football.
We did touch on touch footy there. You played state for touch footy as well. What was that like to represent your state in that, and what led you into touch footy?
Well, to start with, as a teacher, often as PE teachers, we love touch footy, and so we had a school team. By school team, the PE teachers made a team. And I just liked the fitness side of it. It gave me a good opportunity to kind of just do 40 minutes of sprints, but without feeling like I was doing sprints. So it became something that, when I didn't have training, a couple of nights a week, I'd be playing touch footy. And then I guess you play things enough, you get good enough at it. And so different experiences opened up.
You went to Coffs Harbour to play for state as well, representing South Australia. What was that moment like to get to that level?
Yeah, super special, because I never did it with football. I guess through juniors you have a little bit of opportunity, but I didn't like... I was really passionate about not liking big clubs and the kids that played at big clubs, so I didn't want to be anywhere near it. So to have an opportunity in a different sport when, I still tell everyone I'm not a touch footy player, but because I had played so much other sport, I guess it just came naturally. So pretty special.
The system to get selected for that, how does that work with touch footy? Similar to soccer or a little bit different?
I guess similar, but a much lower scale because you just don't have the numbers of players. So we have a state league for touch footy in SA as well, but it's only 4 kind of regions rather than the number of teams we have in soccer. And then from then you get selected from that.
Well, I want to go back to the Hawks again now. We see a lot of we hear a lot of stories about what happens in change rooms, and everyone has their own unique things. What's some of we'll talk about the players you've played with first. What's some of the moments that you've seen in the change rooms that just surprise you, or something unique that people do before a game at the Hawks? Because I know you had some players used to drink pickle juice and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, there's always little things like that. Certain pre-game things. Paulie downing his litre of tonic water, things like that. But the thing that stands out for me is we've got a little bit of a history of like there's a certain corner in the change rooms that the old man has stuck to, and that's kind of gone all the way through from Carinya. Fraser Keegan, when I started, sat in the corner as the old guy. And it was a huge privilege when I could take over from him. Yeah. And then I haven't given it up yet. So just placements like that. I'm certainly well known for my pre-game ritual of having my Twix and my Powerade sitting in the corner ready for me to have before the game. But the change room's a great experience. It's one of the reasons you play football. Yeah. Just to be in that space with your mates where there's no one else around. Well,
with the corner situation, I've heard a story that apparently you push a lot of people out of the way if they do sit in that corner spot, and also throw in a couple of bags away as well with the under 18s. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. If anyone puts their stuff in my space, then it gets launched into the middle of the change rooms. It's another one of those things where I guess you, as a young player, you know what I guess your place is in that kind of ranking. Yeah. I knew when I came into the first team that there were players there that deserve to have respect, and I made sure I respected them, and I think it's important for young players to remember to have perspective on where their position is in football, and that they have to learn, and if they don't have that, they often don't get very far.
Yeah. So you're going to look forward to the day when you get to hand that corner spot off to someone else?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've tried handing the captaincy armband a few times, and it keeps coming back. So I'm looking forward to the day where I can go, right, this is going to be your corner, and I want you to take care of it. And I want you to teach the young players that this is where our club's come from.
We've had it for so long, and you've been at the club for so long as well. Maybe they can call it the Elliott corner or something, maybe? Give it a name?
No, I don't think we need any names going around.
With your number top as well, on your top, number 2, you've had that for a very long time. Any reason behind that choice?
No, not really. I don't really know to start with why I got to 2. I liked being different. It was potentially because no one was 2. It started back in juniors. So I don't know the exact reason why I started with 2, but I definitely know that once I had a number, I wanted to stick with the number, and I wanted people to know that was me, so that they could, when I was running around the football field and they couldn't catch me, they'd see my number.
With your teaching background, and then obviously you're, in all honesty, you're getting towards the end of your career now. Coaching, you're about to do a C license coaching as well. Is that in on the cards as well, so you can still stay at the club after retirement?
Yeah, definitely. Early on I was like, there's no way I'll do coaching. But the last probably 5 years, as I've been getting closer to the end and had some less experienced coaches, I've just enjoyed kind of going through that journey with them and almost being a coach on the field. And the more I do it, the more I think I get excited about the prospects of coaching.
The last few years, you've had some new coaches come through the ranks. Gaz Van Duve come in and coach you guys. He's now at Metro Stars in their reserves team. But also Mitch Daly, who was last season's coach, who took over from Gaz midway through, and they'll coach together. He's now fallen into position of coach of Olympic down there in the NPL. So what's it been like to have those couple of people come through the clubs? And obviously the Daly family have been a big name at the club over the last recent years.
Yeah, it's been nice to kind of be part of that journey with them. You know, I got to play with Mitch. He was up there as a player, and then came back last year to kind of help out. He wanted to try playing, and then that didn't kind of work out. And then he just had to essentially step up because Gaz wasn't able to finish out the year because of health stuff. So I find it a real privilege that I could be part of that journey with them and share some of the wisdom I have, because whilst they maybe have moved on to coaching quicker than me, I've probably got as much knowledge of the game that I can impart on them as coaches as from a player's perspective.
With having that PE teacher role as well, do you reckon that's kind of getting you ready for coaching as well? Because you got to pretty much coach these kids the way you got to handle them and that. Do you reckon that is preparing you for it?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess just knowing how people learn and understanding that everyone needs something a little bit different. And I just recently finished a psych degree as well, which kind of coincided with my interest in coaching, I guess. But I think understanding people and how they learn and knowing, I guess, that side of it, combined with my love of football.
So psychology is what you've learnt?
Yeah.
What interests you in that, and what did you find out about it?
I guess for me, from a work perspective, it was really important to understand kids and understand, I guess, how they turn into what they do and the behaviours and choices that they make. But then also from a football perspective and a sports perspective, how we kind of get in and out of certain situations in a sporting arena and how that makes us make different decisions and the best way we can modify our minds and how we're playing on the field to make clear decisions when we need to.
Have you noticed some differences in the way you play now, or way you understand the game now with that? Have you noticed anything? Or
probably not my game individually, but what I expect from others.
Yeah,
definitely the way I kind of look at others and what's happening for them on the field and how I respond to that. I think doing the learning around, I'd already played a lot of games, so I kind of knew what was happening on the field for me, but to be able to understand others was a big part of it.
Well, hopefully we'll see you at the club for a lot longer. If you don't end up going straight into coaching, do you reckon you'll be at the Hawks for a while? Like just as a supporter?
Oh, yeah.
Always?
The Hawks is my family. I've spent more time with them than anyone else in the world.
Yeah.
And I can't see that changing too much. There's no way I couldn't wake up, tomorrow and not be playing and not be part of that family, because there are people up there that just dedicate their lives to it and have done for a long time. And I think it's important that John Van der Veeken kind of kicked off the idea of the Hawks being a place where Hills young people could show their talents on the soccer field. And I would hate to think that philosophy of football is lost in the Hills.
Well, I reckon, you'll be there for a long time. I reckon there'll be a statue of you one day, if they can do it. Would you love that?
No, I'm not.
You're
not.
Very
a big
humble.
show about me, no.
But the one thing I've noticed about the one club men I've spoken to so far, I've spoken to 3 of you that have all reached big milestones. You all seem very humble and just have that love for the club you're playing at. And it's everyone's got different reasons. With obviously Luke Klemic at Croydon, he's got that Polish background. His dad was Polish. They grew up there together, going to games as a young kid. Then you got Daniel Cox, who lives in Port Pirie, plays for Port Pirie, so it's a bit harder for him to go anywhere else. But he's grew up with that club and loves that club. But for you, Adelaide Hills Hawks, you've had that opportunity to move away from it. But did you always think, well, I know you said you had opportunities and that and you always loved it, but did you ever think that you would be ending your career at the club when you first started?
I guess I never even really thought of it. I never thought I would be going anywhere else, but I'd always kind of just take it as it comes. I don't get too caught up on too many things. As I play football and enjoy playing football for the right reasons and for the people that take their time out of their lives to allow me to play football. Yeah.
Well, we see in AFL with some players from Port Adelaide go to Crows, some from Crows go to Port Adelaide. Could we see you go to Mount Barker United?
Absolutely not. I played for Mount Barker when I was AHJSA as a club that it should have been. There's no way I would ever come close to even contemplating that concept.
I had to end it out on that one, mate. But we'll now go into the kick of the questions, the way I end off all my interviews. You've probably heard these a couple of times with Paulie and Gaz Von Duve, your other Adelaide Hills Hawks at the moment, at that time, that have been on this podcast. Let's go into the first one. Who would you love to kick with on the park? Anyone in the world, if you had the opportunity to, who would you love to?
Fraser Keegan is the man that...
So you're going to go local?
Me. Yeah. I got to play with him.
Yeah.
And any chance that I get to train with him, I love every moment of it. So it doesn't need to be someone from outside. It's
He's going to love
special.
that.
He probably will. But
He's a nice guy. I've met him a few times. One of the loveliest blokes. And also his son, Mitch, plays for the club now as well. So how special is that to have him there?
It is incredible to have opportunity to play with him. I've been, really, really, really pleased with, I guess, his progress in football and to be able to be on that journey with him and Fraser after seeing him as a young fella.
Yeah, so he's
really special.
He's only in his late teens, isn't he? Or
I think he's maybe 21 this year.
Well, there you go. So he was probably
really young, but
he probably wasn't even born when you started playing senior football.
No.
So
I'll get that a lot now.
Yeah. Did you? Was it a surreal moment when you started playing with the son of the father you played with as well?
Yeah, it was. I guess I knew it was coming because we'd had a few chats about it. And Fraser brings it up regularly with me of how, it's a special thing for the club as well.
Yeah.
I wish we had more opportunities for our kids that, I guess, the father-son concept of AFL. I love that idea.
Yeah.
We haven't got too much of it yet. But, Alan Pace has now got Josh playing and he played, obviously, it's a lot of years with Cumberland, but also a little bit with us. So that's great to see him there as well.
Hopefully, you will see more, hopefully. But the second one is, who would you love to kick it with on a Saturday night and watch a game of football? Two people, someone locally and someone internationally. And I have it on good authority. You can have any drink you want, but I have on good authority that you love a beer, a Guinness, or a vodka pineapple, which is a weird choice.
No, it's not weird. It's great for recovery. There's science in it. I don't actually watch a lot of football. I'd rather.
Well, you can do whatever you want.
I'd rather watch basketball with Michael Jordan. There's no doubt about that.
Oh wow, that's a good one.
On the local, if I'm watching football, I want to watch with my teammates.
Yep.
Hosco is probably high on that list. Craig Leith has spent a lot of time in football, so at that point, probably that. But I don't watch a lot of football. I like watching basketball.
Well, if you just want a night out with them, who would you love to hang with? Same choice?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's always your teammates.
And I think they would love to jump in with Michael Jordan as well.
Yeah,
everyone would. That would be a good night. Well, thank you so much for joining me, mate. Good luck with the future. Hopefully the club manages to get a little bit more success and get back into the State League 1 before you hang up the boots. And if not, hopefully you're around to see that with the club as potentially a coach.
Yeah, definitely. We'll get there at some point when it works. I guess sustainability is the journey we're on at the moment.
Yep.
And making sure that we let young people in the hills have that chance.
And hopefully we get to see you at the 500 mark as well. But that'll be a massive and a proud moment for the club as well to see you get to that point.
Yeah, they probably deserve to see me there. They've put a lot of time into me, so be good for them. Absolutely. Well, pleasure, mate, and all the best for the future. Awesome. Thanks very much, Johnny. That was Nathan Elliott from Adelaide Hills Hawks. Make sure you subscribe to Kicking It Local wherever you get your podcasts so you can get a taste of the SA football community. Plus, follow Kicking It Local SA on Instagram and Twitter so you don't miss any of the action. See you soon!